Scorpio. Life is going to change, and I'm here to tell you more about September and to break it down for all 12 zodiac signs. If you're watching me live, welcome. If you're watching a replay, thank you for joining. Before we dive in, a couple of really important announcements. My Natal Astrology Blueprint of the Soul course begins very soon in September. You still can sign up and join the group of astrology enthusiasts, learn more about yourself, about your soul's purpose, about your mission in life, your planets, signs, houses. It will be very enlightening. Astrology was like that for me. It encouraged a lot of inner self-discovery and self-understanding, and I'm sure it will be this way for you too. You can register on my website, anastasiadasastrology.com. You can also book a personal reading on there, and there's a variety of readings, something for everyone. Let me know where you're watching from. Let me know your zodiac sign, your rising sign. The horoscopes I'll be doing are primarily for the rising signs. The way today is going to go, we're gonna look at the main events of the month, just do a summary of September, talking about the most important astrology. And then I'm gonna go through each zodiac sign. I recommend listening for your rising sign because that tends to be the most accurate. So in September, we have a lot of important things happening. The eclipses, having them back to back, 2 weeks apart, is of course the most important thing to talk about. We'll get to it as I go chronologically. But the first thing that happens on September 1st is that Saturn re-enters Pisces, and it will stay in Pisces for the very final time until February 13th, 2026. Saturn has first entered Pisces in March 2023, so this is the final closing of the chapters in your life that got started in 2023. Saturn in Pisces prioritizes spiritual, creative growth, altruism, helping others, asking questions, connecting with something bigger than yourself. It's the sign of faith. It's the sign of redemption. It's the sign of belief. A really great time to sign up for my course. You will hear me promoting it many times because it is my child. I'm pouring a lot of love into it, and I firmly believe that everyone should tap into their curiosity and learn about themselves, because then you're a stronger person and you can understand how other people work, and that can boost your relationships. So take a look back at March 2023 to see what kind of themes can be coming up for you. That is quite important, I think, having Saturn return into Pisces. On September 2nd, Mercury will enter Virgo. This is a lovely transit. Between September 2nd and September 18th, we get 2 weeks, a little bit longer, of Mercury in the methodical, analytical, perfectionist, precise sign of Virgo. Really good for getting organized, doctor's appointments, filing paperwork, doing anything technical that you may need to do. September 3rd, we have a little splash of breakdowns, breakthroughs, as Mercury squares Uranus 2 days before, 2 days after. Technological advances, technological breakdowns are possible. It's like a little sort of lightning striking, right? There may be issues with transportation, miscommunications, but through that kind of chaos, you may find the truth. Just move slowly early in the month, especially between like 2nd, 3rd, 4th with Mercury squaring Uranus, and especially watch out for like physically moving slowly. But highly intellectually stimulating and illuminating transit. Great for learning astrology with me. Register for my course at anastasiadasastrology.com. On September 4th, Mars will square Jupiter 4 days before, 4 days after. Mars square Jupiter is like a soldier on steroids. There's this exuberance, and there's a lot of like physical power and courage and energy. And if you harness this energy, if you stay focused and prioritize things, then you're more likely to, be successful and be on point. But if you are, just a second. But if you push yourself too much, then it's easy to kind of take this too far. So Similar energy early in the month. Watch out for taking unnecessary risks, over-promising, overextending yourself, pushing things too far. September 6th, Uranus goes retrograde, moving backwards from 1 degree Gemini to 27 degrees Taurus until February 3rd, 2026. It will be retrograde. So this is really important if you have planets in 0, 1, 2 degrees mutable signs, Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. Or if you have planets in 26, 27, 28, 29 degrees of the fixed signs, Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, and Aquarius. Because then Uranus will be making aspects to your planets. If you want to know kind of more what this means for you, book a reading on my website. We can definitely talk about that. But Uranus going retrograde sometimes suggests that instead of striving for outward progress, we are more introspective. We're more kind of, there is revolution happening, but in our minds, less so than in our heads. For example, you're reading a book on Buddhism and you're discovering new things, but you're not yet ready to tell your partner that you're becoming vegetarians, right? There's this like slow revolutionary energy that is internally directed. So really great for self-discovery and for learning about yourself. September 7th, one of the biggest events of the month, we get the full moon lunar eclipse at 15 degrees, 24 minutes Pisces. We've had a lunar eclipse in Pisces on September 17th, 2024. So what was happening in your life in September? And if you remember, let me know. But this is a continuation of the story that began in September last year. This is a midpoint. We're going to have one last eclipse in Pisces in August 2026. So we're dealing with Piscean themes, right? We just had Saturn return into Pisces, remind us that we don't need to move too fast. Sometimes we need to slow down. Sometimes we need to go within. Sometimes we need to focus on our inner peace and our mental health. And I think this lunar eclipse on September 7th is continuing the themes that Saturn returning into Pisces introduced. And it reminds you to prioritize soulful connections, spiritual matters. You're leaning more into building relationships with people. What I like about this eclipse is that it's ruled by Jupiter in Cancer, and it also makes a harmonious aspect to Jupiter in Cancer. So there's good luck, there's emotional maturity, there's strong intuition. You may expect certain chapters to close in your life, especially when it comes to things that maybe began in September last year or began in February, March this year, when we had a new moon in Pisces. Ultimately, this feels like a bit of tension between fantasies versus reality, and the question of when your fantasies take you too far versus when maybe your life needs a little bit of imagination. Maybe it needs a little bit of hope, right? And a little bit of like belief, because that's how progress happens. That's how relationships begin, with a certain spark of like idealism and fascination. First eclipse. Are you ready? I hope you're excited. September 12th, we have Sun sextiling Jupiter, very optimistic, lucky, potentially some opportunities, good for travel, education. Same day, Mercury also sextiles Jupiter, so both the Sun and Mercury make a harmonious aspect to Jupiter, so your speech is charming and happy and future oriented, and you're taking steps, I think, towards your goals. It's a really good transit for socializing, for planning a trip, traveling, studying, applying for school, things like that. September 13th, we have Mercury Cazimi. The exact Sun Mercury conjunction suggests a certain intellectual prowess, right? The middle of the month definitely has this beautiful, lovely energy. Mercury cazimi can bring insights, good news, clear thinking, breakthroughs in communication, and developments in technology and experimentation. Whatever you're writing or thinking about or doing could be great. September 15th is my birthday. First and foremost, that's what September 15th is. But also on September 15th, we have Venus-Mars sextile. Sextile, it has it in the name, right? There is romance, there is pleasure, there is connection, romantically or socially or creatively, finding people who support you, reaching out to people, taking things forward with whatever your heart desires. You look and feel happy and confident. September 17th, Mercury will oppose Saturn. So here we have a little bit of roadblock. Something happens. You've been thinking about things. You've been brainstorming. You've been getting new ideas early in the month. And then by September 17th, 2 days before, 2 days after, Mercury opposes Saturn, and maybe there is a difficulty to your plan. Maybe there is a difficult authority figure. Maybe there are some compromises you need to make. Maybe the middle of the month is just the time when you're submitting some documents and you don't like to do it. Maybe it's just the time when you sort of have to power through some things or have some conversations that are difficult. It's not always Saturn is making us do things. Sometimes Saturn just reflects the energy that we are experiencing. And if you want to become familiar with Saturn, your best buddy, join my course. You'll learn everything there is to know. Probably not everything there is to know, but you will learn about Saturn. Register at anastasiadoesastrology.com. Begins so soon, September 6th, so soon. September 18th, Mercury enters Libra, and until October 6th, it's gonna be charming, diplomatic, will likely give you eloquent speech, good for writing postcards to people, writing poetry, letters. But you may also notice the challenge of being indecisive, people pleasing, vacillating in your speech, struggling to choose your point of view because you're just trying to be so nice. By the way, you guys, if at any point you enjoy what I'm saying and you find that it gives you value, you can say thank you by buying me a little present. I think there's an option to tip by pressing the $sign. So if you wanted to do it, you could do it too. September 18th, Mercury also opposes Neptune. So there is a bit of confusion, fogginess, maybe lack of clear thinking and judgment. So September 18th, 19th, try to avoid big decisions. On the 19th, however, right after that, Mercury will form a grand air trine with Uranus and Pluto. So after a setback represented. So I think it's like interesting because we have this series of aspects Mercury and the Sun are making this month, right? First, there is this sextile to Jupiter, and there is the heart-centered idea or progress or conversation or development, right? Some kind of commitment, loyalty, relationship, career, progress. And then we have this opposition to Saturn, and it's a roadblock, and things are not looking as good, and you have to compromise because you can't get 100% how you want things to be. But then on September 19th, and later in the month as well, on the 23rd, 24th, Mercury and the Sun will form this grand air trine with Uranus and Pluto. And what is Uranus if not the planet of experimenting and breaking through convention and coming up with new ideas? It's an excellent time to start studying astrology. Course, my course begins in September. And I will share all I know with you, and I will help you understand yourself. So register on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. Join us while you still can. I know studying astrology is not for everyone, but maybe it is for you because you love astrology. So September 19th, Mercury trines Uranus and Pluto. Like I said, breakthroughs, inspired thinking, you're navigating the confusion and the roadblocks. Venus also enters Virgo on the 19th. Will stay here until October 13th. Venus in Virgo shows love in practical ways through acts of service, through nurturing people she cares about. Watch out for being too pessimistic or too critical of yourself and of other people. On September 20th, Venus will square Uranus, and this can bring relationship breakdowns, difficulties, especially for relationships that are built on shaky foundations, or it can offer you a chance to move past a shakeup and create a stronger relationship. On the 21st of September, the Sun will oppose Saturn, a moment of difficulty 3 days before, 3 days after. The Sun is the planet of ideals and perfect images. And when the Sun opposes Saturn, there is a suggestion of some of your ideals and perfect images shattering and you having to be more realistic and see life through a bit of a somber lens and sort of trying to balance the ideals with the realism of life, perhaps. And as this opposition happens, we also get the second eclipse of the month on September 21st in 28 degrees 59 minutes Virgo. This one doesn't look super great. The first one on the 7th looks better because of the trine to Jupiter. September 21st one looks difficult because of that opposition to Saturn, right? So be ready for some for some tests, for some challenges. Move slowly. Eclipse season is generally not the time for clarity. There may be tectonic shifts and epic shifts that are happening in your life, but you may need a few weeks out of the eclipse season to understand what they were about. So the eclipse on the 21st has some connection with the new moon we just had on the 23rd of August because both of them are in Virgo, but it has a bit more of a compromise, slow down, not yet. Maybe you need to adjust, right? And again, we're dealing with this Virgo, things need to be perfect and I need to have my finger in every pie and I need to know everything versus Saturn and Pisces saying sometimes you need to let go. Sometimes rejection is a blessing and maybe it's not the worst thing. So chances are high around that time that there might be some rejection, some difficulty, some hardship that you have to deal with that will be, it's like to go high, you have to go low to come up on the other side. September 22nd, Mars enters Scorpio, and until November 4th, we have this strategic, driven, focused, martial energy, really good for taking action, for exercising, for, dealing with crisis and challenge and difficulty, but maybe a little bit, we may be too attracted to crisis and difficulty, so watch out for that. The Sun enters Libra until October 22nd, from September 22nd. Happy Libra season ahead of time. But we tend to focus more on relationships, on harmony and balance and peace. We're better at compromising, negotiating, and getting along with other people. But of course, the danger of being indecisive, shallow, passive-aggressive, superficial, all of the more negative sides of Libra are here. On the 23rd of September, the Sun opposes Neptune 3 days before and after. This is very literally could be your immune system gets weakened because the Sun is vitality. Hi, Yolette. The Sun is vitality and Neptune tends to drain you of energy. So could be difficult to be productive in a traditional kind of way, but could be really good for meditation, spirituality, learning astrology. For those of you who are joining my course, I can't wait to see you there. For those of you who want to improve your life and discover your true purpose, register for my natal astrology course. It begins on September 6th, and you can sign up at anastasiadoesastrology.com. The sun also trines Uranus on September 23rd. So in the confusion, there may be some flashes of insight and exciting discoveries. On September 24th, the sun will trine Pluto, which can bring passion, intuition, inspiration, and also support from people in power. And on the 24th, Mars also squares Pluto. This one is a tricky one. Mars-Pluto aspects are difficult because Mars is the soldier, Pluto is the lord of the underworld. So it's like nobody wants to back down, especially when they are in fixed signs. At its worst, this could be conflicts, violence, things on the news that we're watching that are difficult and explosive and frustrating on a personal level. Watch out for starting fights or avoid fights, right? Avoid pushing yourself at the gym too much. At its best, this could bring some darkness to light. This could be like an expose that unravels some difficult story, but actually opens the path to truth and strength and helps people. So this is the summary of September. Going chronologically, we're going to look at the 12 zodiac signs. Again, for anyone who wants to book a reading, if you want to register for my course, all of that can be found at anastasiadoesastrology.com. For people who are watching live, or even if you're watching it later, what's your rising sign? I do recommend listening for the rising sign because rising sign is the doorway to the natal chart and it tends to be the beginning. So again, this is something that we will cover a lot or talk about in my natal astrology blueprint of the soul course, so you can discover more about yourself beyond just sun, moon, and rising sign. So do share your rising signs, and I am going to begin. Starting with Aries rising. For Aries rising in August, there could have been positive developments in the houses of home, family, living situation with the Venus-Jupiter conjunction in Cancer. You could have felt stuck creatively or had to rethink some romantic matters, creative matters, even rediscover pleasure and joy with Mercury retrograde and Leo season in your 5th house. Mars was in Libra, also emphasizing relationships, and the Sun in Virgo highlighted your house of health, offering you opportunities to rethink health and diet and exercise routines. Maybe just get your life more organized. In September, early in the month, we still have some focus on Leo, with Venus being in Leo until September 19th. This Venus really loves being in the 5th house. She's considered in her joy. So you may feel more bold, more like you want to dress more noticeably. You want to put yourself out there. You want to go out. You want to be seen, and you're more likely to be noticed. So romantically, this could be a great time. Creatively, you may also feel quite inspired. On the 1st of the month, Saturn returns to Pisces, your 12th house. This is the final Saturn in Pisces transit. It's going to last from the 1st of September until February 13th, and it will complete the chapter started in March 2023. So here we're looking at your spiritual pursuits. Let's say you started learning astrology. If you're ready to learn astrology and you haven't started learning it yet, join my course. Begins September 6th. You can still sign up. Do so at anastasiadoesastrology.com. But whatever spiritual passions you've been discovering, Saturn returning here might re-emphasize them. It might be like, okay, this is the time to commit to therapy. This is the time to study astrology. This is the time to go on a spiritual quest and buy that ticket and go to an ashram in India. It could also be the time when there are some final behind the scenes matters that you have to address. We have the first eclipse here on September 7th, and it trines Jupiter in your 4th house. So something you are releasing, right? Maybe it's a fear you had. Maybe it's the voice in your head that tells you that you're small, that you can't accomplish certain things. Maybe it's an invitation to trust. Maybe like with Saturn in the 12th house, you're discovering something, and it can be tangible. It can be like a yoga teacher or a therapist that are very supportive, or a parent, but it could be intangible. It could be, again, like astrological knowledge, tarot, anything esoteric, something that supports you. But the eclipse on September 7th is very big, and look back at September last year, because that's when we had our first eclipse in Pisces of this cycle. So it could be about releasing bad habits. It could be about realizing that there are certain patterns you have, like drinking a bit too much, or supporting relationships that don't support you. Maybe even letting go of a family pattern, because there's a trine to Jupiter in Cancer, forgiving someone in the family, accepting that somebody passed away and you couldn't do anything. There could be kind of very like healing energy. The last time we've had eclipses in Pisces and Virgo would have been 2006, 2007. So do you remember what was happening in your life at that point? There's a lot of action in September in Virgo, your 6th house of work, health, and service. So the sun is here, Mercury, Venus, and you are busy professionally. There may be more things on your to-do list, more doctor's appointments, more goals, right? Like you're maybe taking care of your health, you're starting to eat better, exercising. Some friction with planets opposing Saturn in the 12th, especially on that eclipse, the second eclipse of the month on September 21st, as the sun in your 6th house opposes Saturn in the 12th. It's an interesting month, because it could be a really telling month that reminds you that your mental health and your physical health are really closely connected. For anyone who's watching, if you wanted to tip me and say thank you, that is also welcome, not required, but highly appreciated, just saying, because there is a $sign that basically gives you an option to do that. But yeah, so for Aries risings, there is this opportunity to kind of see your physical health through the lens of the mental health, and vice versa. The solar eclipse on September 21st will oppose Saturn, and it's a south node eclipse, so it's very much about releasing something and like new beginnings in health, work, and service, and relationships with colleagues that come from letting something go. And it might be letting go of perfectionism, it might be letting go of some self-defeating tendency, it might be letting go of a job and starting to prioritize like a more spiritual calling and passion. This will be very individual for each. But take a look back at what was happening in your life in March when we had the lunar eclipse in Virgo. And also maybe what is happening right now. We just had a new moon in Virgo on August 23rd. Sorry, just a sec. I should have muted my phone before we started. But continuing with Aries rising, there's a lot of focus on your 7th house of relationships and partnerships, with Mars in the 7th, Mercury, and later the Sun from September 22nd. With Venus in the 5th house, there is a suggestion that you're dating and maybe signing contracts, negotiating agreements, building partnerships that are romantic, but also perhaps business. Uranus goes retrograde from your third into the second house, suggesting a need to rethink your communication and your finances. So communication, finances, maybe even skills, your skills that you can monetize and gifts that you have and talents you have that can bring you satisfaction, not just financially, but also what do you truly love to do? There's a lot of questions like this month, like with Saturn in the ninth, faith, belief, spirituality, astrology, and the eclipse in the sixth, and Uranus is retrograding in the third and second, right? All of this is like what brings me joy, what makes me happy, and changes that are connected to that. Mars, your chart ruler, will enter Scorpio on September 22nd until November 4th, will encourage you to pay off debts, to handle inheritance, taxes, any financial matters, and to potentially also work on healing, maybe letting something go. For those of you who are ready to work on healing in an astrological way, join my natal astrology course. It begins on September 6th, very soon. You can still join, there's still spots, and learn about yourself, learn about people in your life. You can look at their chart and you can be like, this is why you are this way. This is what can make a relationship better, and things like that. Next, we have, let me actually see. Next, we have Taurus rising. For Taurus rising in August, Venus and Jupiter came together in your third house. There could have been positive developments in your relationships with siblings, in your neighborhood, maybe new skills, hobbies, business developments that felt really lovely. Leo season and Mercury retrograde in your fourth house encouraged change in the home, rethinking of your living situation, maybe a need to reconnect with family. Mars was in Libra, your sixth house, encouraging you to take care of work matters, maybe exercise more, fight some kind of professional battles. And the Sun in Virgo, your fifth house, encouraged you to spend more time with children, date, create, have fun, maybe finish some projects, like be very thoughtful and analytical about it. In September, Venus spends the first 3 weeks in Leo, your fourth house, making you feel like you want to spend more time at home. Maybe you're spending more time with family, you're going to some kind of get-togethers, enjoying yourself, you may be redecorating, and even dating is more likely to be connected to people from your hometown or having dates in the home. Saturn returns to Pisces on September 1st and will stay here until February 13th, 2026. The final time Saturn first entered Pisces on March 7th, beginning this long 2.5-year storyline. Pisces is your 11th house. So there is some finishing touches that Saturn needs to make. So this could be your final opportunity to look at your friendships, to examine your connections, to let some draining relationships go or have some conversations, transform them. And all of that is continuously highlighted this month as we also get the lunar eclipse in Pisces on September 7th. So some relationships, some connections, some friendships will be tested by this. Saturn will come in, and if something has been like barely hanging on, it will encourage you to let some people go. But it can also bring new relationships. It can highlight that maybe you need a spiritual group around you. Maybe you need people who are as interested in travel as you are, or people who are as interested in astrology as you are. You can join my Natal Astrology Blueprint of the Soul course. It begins in September, and you will build a community that is like-minded and supportive, and you can grow together. What better way of learning can there be? So the full moon and lunar eclipse can be about releasing some connections, but it can also be about embracing maybe a different sense of community. There is a lovely trine to Jupiter in your third house. So if you're working on a relationship, there could be a great opportunity to talk things through. And 11th house is also our dreams and your role in the collective. So this lunar eclipse could also be about figuring out that there's more to life, that there's maybe a bigger mission or a different mission that you want to pursue and something else you want to be known for. Another eclipse happens in Virgo on September 21st, and there is planets in Virgo all month pretty much. So your house of pleasure and romance and creativity and children is very active, and there may be, maybe you're talking about children, maybe you have kids, maybe you're teaching your child how to draw this month, or you're exploring something creative. The solar eclipse on September 21st will encourage some balancing. The second eclipse is more difficult because it opposes Saturn in your 11th house, and you're having to navigate this vision of your role in the world and your immediate environment, what's happening with your child, what's happening with your relationship, what's happening with your pleasure, and kind of having to balance those things and maybe having to sacrifice something. One thing is for sure, the solar eclipse in Virgo will encourage you to let go of perfectionism, let go of criticism, let go maybe of some rigid way of looking at life, and be ready to press pause and slow down. Last time we've had these eclipses would have been in 2006, 2007. So it's a useful exercise to reflect on those years if you were older than 14, 15, and see what similar things might be coming up at this point. With the sun entering Libra on September 22nd, it highlights your 6th house of work, health, and service. Mars is also there until September 22nd. So you have the planet of energy and action and courage giving you the things needed to work out, to deal with frustrating people, to problem solve, to build things, to see doctors. Maybe you're dealing with some kind of medical question as well. 6th house also rules pets. So for some of you, this could be about handling matters involving your pets. Uranus goes retrograde between September 6th and February 3rd, 2026, moving from your 2nd into the 1st houses. So you're going to get Uranus in the 1st house, which is especially important if your ascendant is between 27-29 degrees Taurus. Then it's going to bring you this one last question of like, who am I? Maybe you'll get a tattoo to commemorate Uranus being in your sign for like 7 years. But this is a more introspective Uranus. It goes from the house of money and values into the house of identity. So you're maybe paying off some debts. You're maybe questioning what you want to do, how you want to be perceived, and who you want to be. A really great time to study astrology. Uranus in the 1st house always is good for learning about yourself. If you want to learn astrology, my course begins on September 6th, very soon. Register on my website. Mars enters Scorpio, your 7th house, on September 22nd and until November 4th. Lights your romantic sector on fire. This could be great for dating, for being serious, strategic, going on dates, partnering up, negotiating, signing business contracts, business deals. Watch out around September 24th as Mars squares Pluto. There might be some friction and power struggles, but it could be a pretty good transit for any kinds of agreements. Doesn't need to be just romantic. Let me see what you guys are saying. Yolette is Leo rising, Leo sun. Proclivities is Virgo rising, Cancer sun. Chelsea is tuning in from Vermont. Hi Chelsea, Sagittarius rising, Sagittarius sun, stellium, Libra moon, and Venus. How lovely. Thank you guys for tuning in. Okay. Moving on to the lovely Gemini rising. So if you are a Gemini rising, August could have brought some developments financially with Venus Jupiter conjunction in your second house. Blessings, gifts, rewards, recognition at work. We've had Leo season, Mercury retrograding then direct in Leo, your third house, and you could have been busier, just more places to go, more people to see, more messages to send. Maybe you've been working on your skills, on your business, just like a very kind of plugged in, quick month. Mars was in Libra, your fifth house, suggesting more action creatively, more dates, more time spent with children, maybe some irritation connected to children, some type of struggle to not be passive aggressive, but a tendency to be passive aggressive as you try to navigate a picky eater child potentially. And the sun entered Virgo later in the month, suggesting a need to take care of your home. Maybe you've been moving, decluttering, or seeing family, or even talking to family more. In September, we have Venus, the planet of love, beauty, and joy, in Leo until September 19th. And that suggests that you're enjoying your everyday life. You're feeling more inspired. You're spending more time in your neighborhood. You're maybe even going on a trip with a sibling. Dating a sibling's friend or dating a neighbor is more likely, or even just meeting someone at a neighbor's party. And I think Venus in the third house is really inspired for whatever it is, right? Like it could be if you're a creative person for your creative job, or even feeling more inspired in the kitchen, cooking things that you wouldn't normally take. Saturn returns to Pisces on September 1st and will stay here until February 13th. So this will re-emphasize your house of career, and it will bring back the themes that got started in March 2023. So what was happening in your professional life? Has there been more stress? Has there been more tension? Has there maybe been a sense that you are over what you're doing? If you are over what you're doing, there is a lunar eclipse in your 10th house of career on September 7th. And it trines Jupiter in Cancer in your second house, and it is also ruled by that Jupiter. And this eclipse brings culmination. It brings completion. It brings change. So for those of you who are working on something really hard, this could be the time you celebrate an achievement. Or this could be the time, if you're tired of your job, where you throw your papers up in the air and you walk away. Don't make reckless decisions, but if it's something you've been thinking about for a while and you're ready to do, definitely listen to your gut. The lunar eclipse and Saturn in Pisces to me also feel like they're emphasizing you following your calling and your truth, and this will be different for different people. It could be about becoming self-employed, changing your schedule, being more free to do what you want. It could be about pursuing astrology for those of you who want to learn more about yourself, discover the patterns in the universe and the connection we have to the planets. Join my Natal Astrology Blueprint of the Soul course. It begins on September 6th, and you can register at anastasiadoesastrology.com. But it's an eclipse month. There is a lot of intense feelings, and emotions might be quite sparkly this month, so be ready. If people are asking you, why am I feeling this way? Tell them, go listen to Anastasia's video about September. So the Virgo action continues. We are in Virgo season. Mercury spends 2 weeks in Virgo. Venus enters Virgo on September 19th. All month there is action in your fourth house of home, family, living situation, culminating in the eclipse on the 21st of the month in opposition to Saturn in the 10th. So while the North Node and Saturn are in your 10th house, and these big questions around purpose and mission and calling are in your head, there is a lot of attention on your home, family, and your nest. and you're maybe figuring out where you see yourself. You're maybe helping family deal with something. They may be contradicting one another, right? Especially at the time of the eclipse. The solar eclipse on September 21st continues the themes from the new moon on August 23rd. It also continues the themes from the March eclipse this year, and even further back, if you want to look at 2006, 2007, which is the last time we've had North Node in Pisces and South Node in Virgo, themes that may have been present at that point. So there is something new happening in the home, but because it's a South Node eclipse, it requires you to release, to forgive, to heal from something, and maybe let go of control and choose more spirituality and kind of trust. It could be the time when there are some delays and difficulties that you're having to deal with work or home. And it doesn't mean that those difficulties are permanent, but it does mean that there will be some roadblocks on your path. Libra season and Mars in Libra this month bring focus to your 5th house of romance, pleasure, parenthood, and children. It could be a good time to date. It could be a good time to take your child to like an active type of play date. It could be a lovely and inspirational time when you're expressing yourself through art, you're picking up painting or dancing or doing something else fun and creative. Uranus goes retrograde from your 1st into your 12th houses. And if you felt like your life has been more hectic since Uranus entered Gemini on July 7th, that may slow down. Things may be still quite hectic in your head as you're questioning what you want to do, who you want to be, where do you see yourself. But Uranus retrograde brings internal revolutions and transformations. It is a great time to study astrology. Just gonna say it again. I am teaching a course. Join me if you'd like to learn more about yourself. And thank you for being, open to the idea and understanding that I am promoting my course that I believe in passionately. And Uranus will also retrograde in your 12th house, which might suggest that some themes that got started back in 2018 and 19 will come to the end very shortly. But Uranus going retrograde in your 12th house feels like the final accord of you learning to deal with things that you don't have control over. And you're coming out of it with that Uranus in the 1st house, strong and empowered and more like a master of yourself and more clear on what you need to do in life. And so this retrograde is just like a final opportunity to take care of mental health, to accept certain things, to release some things. And then Mars, the planet of action, the warrior planet, enters Scorpio, your 6th house, on September 22nd. We'll stay here until November 4th. Mars is in its joy in Scorpio, so generally a very positive transit for Gemini risings, except September 24th when it squares Pluto, 3 days before, 4 days before and after. That could be very heated, very sort of power struggles, drama, but generally from September 22nd until November 4th, Mars in Scorpio gives you the energy to exercise, to take action, to problem solve, to see doctors, make appointments, and just be like on top of things. If you're looking for more, register for my course or book a personal reading at anastasiadoesastrology.com. If you are a Cancer rising, in August, Venus came together with Jupiter in your 1st house, potentially inspiring you, giving you new opportunities, offering you a chance to reinvent yourself or continue working towards a goal. Some positive developments were likely. There could have been financial reviews with the Sun in Leo and Mercury retrograding in Leo. maybe going back to an old job or rethinking your finances. Mars was in Libra, your fourth house, bringing fighting with neighbors or fighting within family or opportunities to fight for something in your hometown or neighborhood, or even do some DIY projects in the home. The sun in Virgo offered you opportunities to make improvements to your everyday life, organize things, maybe figure out some kind of plan, adjust your schedule and things like that. In September, Venus is in Leo until September 19th. This should be positive for your finances. This could also read as spending a bit too much or spending on beauty, spending on art, but chances are if you're spending on art, it's likely that you're getting something that will grow in value and it will actually bring you profit in the future. But it could be the time also of like other people being more generous with you, and there being gifts and rewards and other sort of lovely things. If you don't mind pressing the like button and subscribing if you haven't yet, this could be a good time to do that, by the way. On September 1st, Saturn returns to Pisces, your 9th house, and will be here until February 13th, completing the chapter started in March 2023. So Saturn returning to Pisces, and then the lunar eclipse in Pisces on September 7th very much highlights your spiritual house, your house of education, travel, legal matters, right? And the lunar eclipse on September 7th actually trines Jupiter, and it's ruled by Jupiter in Cancer in your first house. So this house of spirituality, travel, education, law gets connected to your identity. And so on one hand, it could mean that chapters are finishing, right? If you've been writing your dissertation, you're wrapping it up and you're becoming a teacher. You've been dealing with the legal battle, you're wrapping it up and you're free to travel and live somewhere else. So things could be changing, but there could also be important new beginnings that involve learning, that involve travel, that involve philosophy, being a religious leader, being a cult leader. Don't be a cult leader, but do inspire people. And it's also a lovely transit for studying. I am teaching a natal astrology course. It begins on September 6th, and it's a unique opportunity to connect with yourself more deeply and connect with people in your life. I look at people's charts all the time, and it gives me, I feel like, an unfair advantage because I can understand people just by looking at their chart and reading their chart. So if you want to be like me, come study with me. You can register at anastasiadoesastrology.com. So the second eclipse happens in Virgo on September 21st, and this one opposes Saturn in the 9th house. So Virgo sector is active all month. For Cancer risings, it's your third house of communication, siblings, neighbors, business, skills, and hobbies. So you're maybe dealing with some logistical matters, sending more messages, getting organized. You're maybe dealing with siblings or neighbors. And the solar eclipse on September 21st, the fact that it's a south node eclipse, so it has that spiritual cleansing energy to it, and the fact that it opposes Saturn in the 9th, suggests some kind of clash between your everyday life and your schedule, maybe your busyness, maybe your control on some things, maybe the duties you have to your siblings, and your higher calling and your higher purpose, and even maybe the course that you want to take and study. And so the solar eclipse in Virgo on September 21st suggests a need to rethink how you communicate, how you move through your day, how you deal with siblings and neighbors. There may be some ideological disagreement, some tension or conflict that you need to address and move around. So it's gonna have, it's something that we're already maybe noticing. We just had a new moon in Virgo on August 23rd. We also had a lunar eclipse in Virgo in March 2025. So look back at that and maybe think of like some perfectionist Maybe, yeah, perfectionist tendency, some rigidity of thought that you have that maybe you need to release. With Mars in Libra and the Sun entering Libra on September 22nd, the focus on your home family sector continues. You're maybe continuing to fix things, spend time with family. Again, maybe being active with family and active in your neighborhood, active in your hometown, or fighting with those people. Mars in Libra doesn't like fight in a direct way, but it could be a bit passive aggressive and, you know, like dramatic. So watch out for that. Uranus goes retrograde on September 6th, and until February 3rd next year moves from your, it moves from your 12th into your 11th house. Okay, yeah, I had it correctly. So Uranus retrograde brings a lot of internal questions instead of external progress. And with Uranus beginning its retrograde in your 12th house, there may be some spiritual questions that you're asking. There may be breakthroughs in therapy or a desire to retreat and reconnect with yourself. And then it goes into your 11th house, completing the chapters that got started in 2018, 2019, when Uranus first went into your 11th house. And either encouraging you to release some connections or bringing new relationships and connections into your life. Mars also enters Scorpio, your 5th house, on September 22nd. Will be here until November 4th. And this is very sexy Mars. So 5th house is the house of pleasure and romance. So this could definitely be the time when you're noticing that you're like spending more time dating and having, you know, making love and things like that. 5th house is also the house of children, so it could be the time when you're spending more time with children and feeling more inspired. September 24th, 4 days before, 4 days after, it can be potentially rough because Mars will square Pluto in your 8th house, so disagreement, tensions, conflicts involving children and parenthood are likely. If you'd like more, don't forget to register for my course while you still can before it begins on September 6th. And book your personal reading. You can do so on my website. You can also tip me and say thank you that way. Chelsea says, I also like to listen to my horoscope for other people in my life, and family member with Cancer rising has a job interview this week, hoping for good luck and finances for him. Yeah, it should be pretty positive, I think, with Venus having just entered his 2nd house of money. Could be definitely a good sign. Speaking of Leo risings, I don't know if I was speaking of Leo risings, but if you are a Leo rising, in August, Venus conjoined Jupiter in your 12th house, maybe encouraging you to retreat, go on a spiritual getaway, connect with your sense of self and sense of wonder, maybe even heal a wound, an inner wound. We've had the Sun in Leo, Mercury retrograding in Leo, your 1st house, some revision of your style, rethinking your hair, redoing things connected to your look could have been possible. Mars was in Libra, your 3rd house, and you maybe felt inspired to write, to speak, to go out and connect with siblings and neighbors. Maybe dealt with some friction with siblings and neighbors, quite likely as well. And then the Sun in Virgo highlighted your financial sector, encouraging you to start a savings account, consult a financial advisor, maybe talk about getting paid more, make some positive changes to your finances. In September, Venus is in Leo, your 1st house, until September 19th. It makes you more charming. It gives you more visibility. You're more noticeable. You're more bold, more expressive in your style and in your look. You're also a lot more charming and attractive to a potential romantic partner or business partner. It could bring a lot of compliments and gifts your way. Saturn returns to Pisces on September 1st for the final round, and it will be here until February 13th next year, completing the chapter that got started in March 2023. So for Leo risings, this could be about paying off debts that maybe you've taken a loan back in March 2023, or you've discovered that you owed someone money. There's a Leo rising I know that discovered that she forgot that she owes her brother a few $1,000s. So there may be a completion of some debt repayment or some karmic cleansing, especially with the lunar eclipse here on September 7th. The lunar eclipses, solar eclipses, they're really big portals for change and transformation. And here we are completing the chapter, not completing, but maybe completing certain matters. But we've had the first lunar eclipse in Pisces in September last year. And so this is the second eclipse, and then there's going to be a third lunar eclipse in August next year. So for some, it's like a midpoint. For others, it may be about completing, right? Paying off that debt or getting to a place where you have a clear strategy, right? With Virgo season also highlighting your second house of money. It's all about figuring out how to manage finances, but it's also about your priorities and your relationships with other people and figuring out how to share energy, how to live with someone, how to work with someone, right? The lunar eclipse might actually encourage you to trust people, to support you, to have, sort of trust people or trust the universe that you can get through whatever it is you're going through. And don't just focus on money. If it's not about money for you, it could be about something completely different. But in the 8th house, it's sort of learning to trust that you can get through whatever life throws at you, because 8th house is very unpredictable. And there's also a beautiful trine to Jupiter in the 12th, which is a traditional ruler of Pisces, which can bring a lot of blessings in disguise, a lot of like hidden miracles and support from people that are hard to see, that you don't know, right? Take a look back also at 2006, 2007, when we had the North Node in Pisces previously. The second eclipse happens on September 21st, and it activates your second house of money and values. So the eclipses are interconnected because they're happening in the opposite signs, right? As the North Node draws your attention to relationships with other people, paying off debts, trusting, the South Node eclipse in Virgo season highlights your second house of personal finances. So before you get in bed with someone, one first has to discover themselves, right? So this eclipse, this Virgo eclipse, is very much about your priorities, your values. Maybe you're moving in with your significant other. Maybe you're starting a business. Maybe you're getting a loan or a mortgage, right? And there is this need to be clear on what you want, but also with the solar eclipse in the conjunct South Node in opposition to Saturn in the 8th, maybe make some concessions, maybe make some compromises, maybe. I feel like Leo risings tend to be really good with money because Virgo is very organized. But maybe it's like an opportunity to embrace some chaos and some beauty and imperfection. Mars is in Libra until September 22nd, and then after that, the Sun is in Libra, highlighting your third house of communication, schedule, siblings, neighbors, skills, and hobbies. So you could be moving faster, you could feel more inspired, you could be more competitive as well with your siblings or neighbors. Writing, right? Learning. Speaking of learning, join my natal astrology blueprint of the soul course. Begins on September 6th, and you will not regret it because it will give you tools to use everywhere, anywhere, and it can improve your career, your relationships, whatever you're doing, even if you don't want to be a professional astrologer. So Mars energizes you. Just watch out for like driving too fast or getting sort of egged on and forced to fight in every single fight. Not every battle is worth fighting. Uranus goes retrograde from your 11th house into the 10th, making you question your friendships, making you question your career. And this begins on September 6th and then lasts until February 3rd, 2026. So Uranus retrograde is a lot more about inner revolution versus outer progress. So instead of actively going out into the world and creating a community, becoming a leader, becoming an inspirational figure, you're maybe retreating and you're asking yourself what inspires you. And you're sort of observing and learning and questioning. Mars enters Scorpio, your 4th house of home, family, and living situation. And it's gonna give you more energy and courage to, well, so this begins on September 22nd and lasts until November 4th. Mars here is really good for taking on any home improvement projects. It's really good for being active with the family, spending time with family. Mars will also square Pluto on September 24th, 4 days before, 4 days after. So there might be some power struggles with the family, some tensions and drama. Could be healing, could be really healing for like family issues and family matters and family conflicts. I am gonna pause for just a second. Don't go too far. I'm just gonna use the restroom because this is my first time. Not the first time doing a live that is this long, but a relatively like long. And if you guys can tell me what's happening in your life, you can do that. But I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Sorry. Okay. So any Leo risings, let me know. Chelsea says the chat. Proclivity says when you gotta go, you gotta go. Hee hee. Well, yeah, and I wanna like focus on. Chelsea says the chat is pretty quiet. I'm working in the kitchen while I'm listening to it. Yeah, it's a bit of an odd time that I'm doing this at 12 p.m. Eastern. Most people are at work, so I feel like it probably makes sense. But thank you for watching while working and doing things. So next we have Virgo rising. In August, Virgo rising had a Venus-Jupiter conjunction in Cancer, 11th house. So there could have been some opportunities through your friends, some social developments, some maybe new dreams that were presented to you or new opportunities. We also had the Sun in Leo and Mercury retrograding in Leo in your 12th house, encouraging some spiritual soul searching. Maybe you felt like you wanted to retreat, get away, take a beat. Mars was in Libra, your 2nd house, and you could have also been making more money, but also maybe spending more money, figuring out a better financial strategy. And then the Sun entered Virgo on September 22nd, giving you more energy, and again sort of felt like opportunities to be more visible, right? In September, Venus is in Leo, your 12th house, until September 19th, and your romantic life is happening behind closed doors. If you are in a relationship, it's more private, it's more behind the scenes. Maybe it's as passionate as ever, but you're like traveling with your significant other. If you're single, you're maybe more aware of your sabotaging, self-defeating tendencies in love, or watch out. The danger here is to go for people that are unavailable, not healthy for you, but stir something within you. I would warn you to be more kind of discerning with who you're choosing and who you're going for. The biggest shift, one of the biggest shifts this month, is Saturn returning to Pisces on September 1st. Until February 13th, it will be finishing up chapters that got started in your relationships in March 2023. It suggests a need to figure things out, right? Maybe you've been through some difficulty in your romantic life and you've learned a lot, or maybe you've made a commitment and you need to put some final kind of touches, set some boundaries in your relationships, renegotiate some contracts, right? What has been happening in your romantic life when Saturn first entered Pisces in March. And this is even more exacerbated by the fact that both eclipses are connected to Saturn. The eclipse on September 7th is happening in the sign of Saturn, the same sign as Saturn is in. And the eclipse on September 21st is opposing Saturn. So a lot of questions of like me versus them, because the Virgo eclipse is highlighting you and your house of identity, and the Pisces eclipse on September 7th is highlighting your relationship. So an image of yourself is dissolving on one hand with the solar eclipse on September 21st. There is something you're letting go. Maybe it's a tendency to be perfect. Maybe you're examining, right? And Virgo season in general, with all these planets in Virgo and South Node in Virgo and the eclipse in Virgo, all of that is just like, where are you trying too hard? Where are you being too hard on yourself? Where are you being too critical? Like, what is your truth? Who are you when no one's watching? And so as these shifts happen within you, the lunar eclipse in Pisces on September 7th suggests really important shifts in relationships and around you. And the lunar eclipse in Pisces and the solar eclipse in Virgo, they repeat the cycle that we've had in 2006, 2007. So do reflect if you remember what was happening in your life at that point. And the lunar eclipse on September 7th also is similar to the eclipse we had in September 2024. So what was happening in your relationships back then? So that could be about marriage, that could be about divorce, that could be about finishing a custody battle, that could be about business turning around, that could be about starting a partnership, even though lunar eclipse tends to represent a change. So it could be like a change in a business situation, especially with a nice trine to Jupiter in Cancer. In the 11th house, there is a lot of support that's coming your way this month from friends and allies. You're definitely not going to feel alone, even if things are kind of going through ups and downs in your relationships. The focus on your second house of money and values definitely continues with Mars in Libra until September 22nd, and then also the Sun in Libra from September 22nd. So maybe you're negotiating a better salary, setting some money aside, contributing to your pension or your IRA. Uranus goes retrograde from your 10th into your 9th house on September 6th and will be retrograde until February 3rd. So here we're looking at the house of career and public life and visibility and purpose, and the house of faith and belief and long journeys and spirituality. And so some kind of revision is happening in your professional life, but it's not necessarily to be obvious yet, because the retrograde of Uranus is a lot more introspective period, and it just suggests that there could be some kind of restlessness in terms of what you're doing for a living, and maybe you're seeking something different, right? Something more awe-inspiring. It could be a really great time to study tarot, Reiki, astrology. My course begins on September 6th, and you can still sign up. There is still time to learn about yourself, learn to read charts, and apply astrology to improve every facet of your life. Uranus retrograde could be like a really good period when you're discovering things that can then help you in life. You can register on my website. And the last thing for Virgo risings that I'd like to mention is Mars entering Scorpio, your third house, on September 22nd and until November 4th. It gives you passion and power in your speech. It speeds up your schedule and your day, but it gives you this very strategic approach, helps you navigate conflicts. Watch out for drama around September 24th when Mars squares Pluto in the 6th house. There could be technical issues or conflicts at work and difficulty there. For more, visit my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com, to book a reading or register for my course. Hi, Duchess of Mayberry. You are a Libra rising. Perfect timing. I'm about to do a Libra rising. So for all the lovely Libra risings out there, in August, Venus conjoined Jupiter in Cancer. So it could have inspired new professional ideas, professional rewards, achievement, recognition. We've had the Sun in Leo and Mercury retrograde then direct in Leo in your 11th house, encouraging more networking. Maybe you met some people. I'm in France as a Libra rising for another 2 days. So sad. The dream has to end and the real life has to come in. But I am teaching a course, as you know, so I am very excited about that. But while I'm in France, I'm meeting people and definitely feeling quite social. So do share if you're a Libra rising, if you felt like August has been social. Mars in Libra, your first house, could have given you energy to advocate for yourself, just maybe sped up your life and encouraged more action. And the Sun in Virgo from September 22nd encouraged you to get away and maybe spend some time alone and connect with yourself. In September, Venus is in Leo until September 19th. This is your 11th house. This gives you social opportunities. You're going out more. You're shining in a public context. You're maybe speaking at a conference, leading, meeting people, dating friends, or partnering up with friends is also quite likely. Just like a very social, pleasant time, great time to go on vacation, great time to join a course and build a group of like-minded people. We begin in September. Saturn returns to Pisces, your 6th house, on September 1st, and will be here the final round until February 13th, 2026. So Saturn has first entered Pisces in March 2023, and it could have increased your workload. It could have put some pressures on your health. It could have stress tested you. And chances are this final opportunity of Saturn being in Pisces is the time for you to set better boundaries, to rethink your priorities, to take care of health. And to affirm that even more, we have a lunar eclipse in Pisces here on September 7th in a trine to Jupiter in Cancer in your 10th house. Look back at what was happening in September 2024 when we had the first eclipse in Pisces, and look back even further at 2006, 2007, and like what was happening in your life, in your spiritual life, in your even like living situation and things like that. But the lunar eclipse it suggests change professionally for sure because of that trine to Jupiter. I think it could offer you a chance to figure out what really is worth your time and energy and set some boundaries in the otherwise difficult Piscean realm. Wherever we have Pisces in our chart, we tend to struggle with boundaries. This is my personal theory. I'm sure other astrologers will agree or disagree, but the lunar eclipse on September 7th could encourage you to figure out boundaries in this seemingly boundless Piscean world. So closing some professional matters, maybe decluttering your workload, maybe prioritizing more spiritual pursuits. Highly recommend for you guys to start studying astrology with Uranus in the 9th house and the eclipses in the 6th house. It just screams spirituality and finding calling and purpose, and astrology can be very helpful for that. So the eclipse on September 7th can also be about health, right? Can also be about completing some kind of health issue. But it's like there's so much focus on your physical health and your mental health, similarly to Aries risings. We have the sun in Virgo until September 22nd. We have Venus there from September 19th. There's a solar eclipse in Virgo on September 21st. So it's your mental health house, and there is something being shown to you in the 12th house on September 21st with the solar eclipse in Virgo of like what doesn't serve you, what is unhealthy, where are you being maybe like too much in your head, or you're pushing yourself, or you're like getting stuck, you're maybe wasting some energy on things that are not worth wasting your energy on. Because even though the solar eclipse is about new beginnings, it is the South Node eclipse, and South Node is spiritual and it has that draining energy. And it also opposes Saturn in the 6th house. So it's like, it's a very much, it feels like that eclipse tells you to say goodbye to something. I feel like it tells you to let something go. Either it's like a mental pattern, or it's a physical habit, or it's a professional situation that will be personal. And if it resonates with you, do let me know. And of course, the focus on your house of identity continues through it all, with the ruler of the eclipse, Mercury, the ruler of the solar eclipse in Virgo, Mercury being in the 1st house of self, and Mars being here until September 22nd, and the sun being here from September 22nd. So it's a very kind of like charged month of deep personal questions. And it's almost like you have to do some physical cleaning of your body, of your workspace, of your workload, and some mental cleaning of your mind before you are able to blossom and bloom. And quite literally, we're going to have a new moon in Libra next month, right, in October. So you're doing a lot of shuffling through things this month. Uranus goes retrograde on September 6th, and until February 3rd, it will move backwards from your 9th into the 8th houses, suggesting that before you dive in and completely embrace the role of a teacher, move to a new country, become a lawyer, or start that travel blog, or like open your life up in whatever way you want to open it up. Maybe you're thinking of becoming an astrologer. There's definitely at least one Libra rising I know that is taking my course. So if you are willing to learn astrology, and if you feel like you can't get enough, it's time for you to join my course. It begins September 6th. Sorry, I'm getting a phone call. It's like so annoying because it's a phone call about the internet service in New York, where I'm not right now, where I'm not presently. So yeah, so there's like some kind of maybe karmic matters that you need to address before you step into this next chapter of your life. There may be some debts you have to pay, maybe some financial matters that you have to clear with Uranus retrograding between your 9th and 8th houses. Maybe even some like processing of death and losses that you may have experienced in the last like 7 years. If you've lost some people, if you've dealt with death, which is quite likely for most Libra risings, this Uranus retrograde could be about making sense and finding peace when it comes to that. Mars enters Scorpio, your 2nd house, on September 22nd, will be here until November 4th. This is powerful for making money, making financial decisions. You're also more likely to be spending more, so watch out for that. But the good news is Mars is really strategic and good at making decisions in Scorpio. So generally, I like this transit, except for September 24th when it squares Pluto, 4 days before, 4 days after. Could be rather intense and dramatic, so watch out for that. For more, visit anastasiadoesastrology.com. Register for my course so soon, September 6th, and you will enjoy it. You will change your life by learning astrology. It was so eye-opening for me. We start September 6th. Register at anastasiadoesastrology.com. You can also book a reading on there. And if you are a Libra rising, share how this resonates. Who else do we have here? We have a Pisces rising, Beatrix. Duchess of Maybury is a Libra rising. Melinda is a Sagittarius rising. I know there is Sagittarius risings watching. Your turn is coming up. But yeah, let me know. Scorpio rising. Okay, your turn is next. Thank you guys for watching. If you're enjoying and you also wanted to say thank you, there is that $ sign if you wanted to tip me. No pressure, but very much appreciated. Okay, I'm just gonna take timestamp because I wanna put timestamps for people who are watching it later on. If you are a Scorpio rising, dear Scorpio rising, so in August, Venus came together with Jupiter in your 9th house, encouraging you to travel, to grow, to explore spiritual questions, to learn. Maybe you signed up for my natal astrology course. If you did, I'm looking forward to teaching you. If you haven't yet, do so. Jupiter in the 9th house is a great time to study. You can register at anastasiadoesastrology.com. We begin on September 6th. We've had Leo season highlighting your 10th house of career, and Mercury was retrograding here, suggesting some professional review and rethinking. Mars in Libra, your 12th house, could have been the time when you felt a desire to get away, retreat, connect with your spirituality, spend some time in private, or even the time when you worked on your mental health potentially. The sun entered Virgo later in the month, highlighting your 11th house of friendships, networks, hopes, and dreams, and speeding up your social life. In September, Venus is in Leo until September 19th in your 10th house, and there is a strong desire to enjoy what you do for a living. You're maybe expressing yourself creatively at work. You're maybe connecting with bosses and having better relationships. You may be feeling like a strong desire to find a calling that actually brings you joy and pleasure. Because Venus also rules your 7th house of relationships, this could suggest that you're meeting someone at work and maybe dating someone of higher status, an authority figure, or someone who's like very professionally oriented. Saturn enters Pisces, your 5th house, returns rather to Pisces on September 1st, and until February 13th, it will work on tying the loose ends and finishing chapters that got started on March 7th, 2023 in your sector of romance, pleasure, parenthood, and children. And we also have a lunar eclipse here on September 7th. So your 5th house is busy, busy, busy. Sorry. I woke up at 4:45 today to get on a plane from Amsterdam to Nice, France. So I'm a little bit like, ooh, been up for a long time. So there is a lot of focus on children and romance and pleasure. And with Saturn here, it encourages you to commit to those things, right? And set better boundaries. So set boundaries in your romantic life, to speak to your partner about what's important to you, set boundaries with children, commit to your passions and your pleasure. And so the lunar eclipse here on September 7th, it is similar to the eclipse we had in September 2024. So look back at that and also reflect on the last time we've had North Node in Pisces, South Node in Virgo, which would have been in 2006, 2007. But it encourages you to wrap up some relationship matters, to maybe take care of some matters involving children, and to like get clear. Fifth house is very personal. Fifth house is about like what makes you happy, what is about you enjoying life and not, you know, comparing to other people, not thinking about other people. There's a trine to Jupiter in Cancer in the 9th house, so it's quite supportive. And Jupiter in Cancer in the 9th house again encourages you to study, to travel, to grow, to maybe make connections with people who are foreign and like open yourself up to something that feels like a purpose and a calling. And of course, this could also bring changes in romantic relationships, maybe even pregnancy or birth of a child or change in a child's life. But I feel like it's also about like on a spiritual level, what makes you happy and how can you bring more of that into your life. Study astrology with me. We begin on September 6th. Anastasia.astrology.com. Register today. The Virgo sector is highlighted all month as well. So as you're asking yourself, what is pleasure, what is joy, what is the personal goal you have, there's also a strong focus on your social life and your responsibility to your community and maybe your hopes and aspirations, as the sun is in Virgo and the solar eclipse on the 21st highlights this house as well. So you're very much this month looking for balance between personal and social, right? Between like my pleasure and what I owe to others or what others expect of me. And the solar eclipse on September 21st highlights that very strongly as it opposes Saturn in your 5th house. So there may be a sense of like having to compromise, having to let something go. I can see this as you get a job, but maybe it requires you to spend less time with your child and you're having to think about it. Either you say no to a job or you say yes to a job and you're just being patient and you're kind of having to navigate things. There are a lot of oppositions to Saturn this month, so a lot of tough decisions that are presented by this epic eclipse season. There's a lot of focus on your 12th house with Mars in Libra until the 22nd of the month and the Sun in Libra after the 22nd. So there's still this desire to step away, to relax, to maybe connect with something beyond, to do yoga, to take long walks, to spend some time alone, but perhaps together with people you love, but just still have time to be quiet. Uranus goes retrograde from your 8th into your 7th houses on September 6th and will be retrograde until February 3rd. Uranus retrograde is the time of internal review and introspection. And here we're looking at your houses of sharing, at your houses of debts and loans and partners' money. So it could also be about maybe paying off some debts and helping your partner with their finances and setting things up so your relationship is better in a financial way. Like maybe you help your partner pay off their debt, or they help you, or you figure out like a different way of spending together. Healing relationship wounds and examining kind of give and take dynamics with other people is also quite likely. And then in 8th house is also the house of like mysteries and spirituality and questioning life and making sense of death and things like that. Mars leaves Libra, enters Scorpio, your first house, on September 22nd. This is your chart ruler coming home. How exciting. It will be here until November 4th, giving you the energy. If your sleep has been a bit uneasy and difficult, Mars here should help with that. It should give you courage, stamina, strategy to go after your goals as a ninja in the night. Just watch out around September 24th, 4 days before, 4 days after, as Mars squares Pluto in the 4th. And there may be some drama involving home, family members, childhood wounds clawing their way into your life and showing up in some unpredictable way. But Mars in the 1st could be quite lovely, I think, for figuring out who you are and what you want. And if what you want is learning astrology, you still can register for my course at anastasiadoesastrology.com. You can also book a personal reading to ask all of your questions and have me look at your chart. Let me know how this resonates, and we will shortly move on. And also, who is watching? What are your signs? Do tell me if you haven't yet. For the beautiful Sagittarius rising, in August, Venus conjoined Jupiter, your chart ruler, in your 8th house, inspiring developments in partnerships, financial rewards, inheritance, or maybe some kind of resources and support from other people. We've had the Sun in Leo, Mercury retrograde, then direct in Leo, your 9th house, encouraging. You maybe had to retake some exams, redo some visas or some legal documents. Maybe you've addressed some challenges involving travel, or just traveled in general and studied and taken some action. With Mars in Libra, your 11th house, your social life could have been quite busy. More opportunities to go out to see and be seen, opportunities to advocate for a social issue or help a group of people you belong to or associate with or just feel passionately about. And the Sun in Virgo, your 10th house, encouraged professional action and developments and like focus on your career, maybe some rethinking there. In September, Venus is in Leo until September 19th, your 9th house, and you are enjoying travel. You're enjoying learning. You're maybe dating foreign people, or you're traveling to see your significant other who maybe is a foreigner. Even if you're not making these like big moves, there's a strong desire to learn and to open yourself up to something new and to have some fun in the process. So going to a cooking class on a date, or going to a foreign exchange, foreign language meetup where you can meet some people. You can also register for my course. I will repeat myself. It begins on September 6th, so it's very, very soon. And you will learn astrology. You will learn about yourself, your one and only most valuable player on your team. So it's a worthy investment. You can register at anastasiadoesastrology.com. Begins very soon. So Venus in the 9th can definitely inspire joy and romance and pleasure. Even like foreign friendships can show up in your life. Saturn re-enters Pisces, your 4th house, on September 1st, and until February 13th, it will be here wrapping up storylines that it introduced in March 2023, suggesting a need to put some finishing touches in your home, maybe finish paying off your mortgage, maybe finish dealing with some kind of family matter. There is also a lunar eclipse here. The first eclipse of the month happens in Pisces on September 7th, highlighting your house of home, family, and living situation, and it brings a lot of attention to this house. Maybe you're moving, maybe you're helping your parents move, and maybe you're remodeling, renovating, maybe you're healing childhood wounds or something like that. We've had an eclipse in Pisces in September 2024, and we've also previously had South Node in Virgo and North Node in Pisces in 2006, 2007. What do you remember about those periods and how you potentially were affected? But there is a lovely trine to Jupiter in Cancer, 8th house, so it suggests healing, suggests like financial support, inheritance, paying off the loans, and this kind of like nice, maybe even development in relationship that spurs you or encourages you to travel and to get away. The second eclipse of the month happens in your house of career. And funny enough, it opposes Saturn in the 4th house. So your professional life is at odds with your home and family developments. And even your goals may need to be postponed or somehow compromised with what's happening in the home and responsibilities to the home that Saturn is bringing back up. So, this could be like, so Virgo sector is highlighted all month. We just had a new moon in Virgo on August 23rd, and you're maybe questioning your professional future. You're maybe thinking about new beginnings in your career, but there could also be a sense that your parents need your help because they're having health issues, or you just had a child and you need to take care of your child. So there are some other matters that involve home, family that need to be addressed. And with the solar eclipse conjunct South Node in your 10th house, there's also a sense that your professional life is changing and you're prioritizing family, you're prioritizing peace. It doesn't just have to be family, but you're choosing something that is more soulful and spiritual, and it could be about family and your child and your relationship, but it could also be about just, having more chill, having more zen. Mars is in your 11th house of friendships, networks, hopes, and dreams. The sun comes here on September 22nd and speeds up your social life, suggests that there's more maybe networking events. You're still advocating for other people. You're still connecting with other people. You're going on to social media a lot and speaking in public, coming across as like charming but passionate. Uranus goes retrograde from your 7th into your 6th house on September 6th, and until February 3rd, it will be encouraging you to review your relationships and what is kind of fun in a romantic relationship, but also maybe the time to rethink your business partnerships. There's an interesting sense that it's connecting your house of relationships with your house of mundane and problem solving, and maybe suggests that you first need to resolve some issues that involve health, that involve taking care of like an ailing family member or some other like home improvement project, something that you need to kind of like clear up, and even maybe like a physical health matter that you need to take care of before you take the next step and maybe move in with your significant other or start a business partnership. Something needs to be like decluttered. Maybe it's internally even. Mars enters Scorpio, your 12th house, on September 22nd, and will be here until November 4th. Mars in the, just a sec. Sorry, I'm like trying to. Okay. My phone is telling me that the energy, that I should probably speed up because it's at 20%. So Mars in Scorpio, 12th house, from September 22nd until November 4th, will be a good time to travel, get away, go on a spiritual retreat. It could also be a great time to see a therapist or take care of some kind of like mental health concerns, but also a good time to work in private, behind the scenes, work in solitude. You'll have more energy to accomplish things. Mars also squares Pluto in your third house on September 24th. So there might be some friction, some power struggles around that time. So be careful there. For more, register for my course. Begins September 6th. You can register at anastasiadoesastrology.com. And you can also book a personal reading on my website. For the beautiful Capricorn rising, in August, there could have been important developments in your relationship sector with the Venus-Jupiter conjunction in Cancer, your 7th house. Partnerships, business agreements as well. We've had the Sun in Leo, Mercury retrograde and direct highlight your 8th house, encouraging negotiating matters, maybe financial review, repayment of debts, and just kind of clearing of karmic dependencies and maybe healing. Also dealing with any kind of like inheritance, financial situation, right? Like renegotiating a mortgage. What's the word I'm missing? Mortgage rate, things like that. Mars was in the house of career, encouraging you to take professional action, and the Sun was in Virgo, your 9th house, urging you to travel, to learn, to connect with foreign people, and to expand your life through knowledge and travel and education, and maybe even faith and philosophical inquiry. In September, Venus is in Leo, your 8th house, until September 19th. This should benefit your partner. This should benefit you through other people. You may receive a bonus, a return on investment, a gift from somebody in your life. There might be some kind of supportive and positive development. And it could also be a great time to work in tandem with someone else, to work with a person who shares your vision or someone who can benefit, like improve your perception of something. Saturn returns to Pisces, your 3rd house, and it will be here until February 13th, 2026, completing the chapter started in March 2023. So what was happening in your life in March 2023? Saturn in general suggests a need to complete some kind of project. Let's say it's like a writing project that you started in March, or a learning project that you've been working on. There may be a need to rethink your communication, your beliefs, even set better boundaries with siblings, neighbors, or people in your life. The lunar eclipse in Pisces on September 7th emphasizes that even more. We've had a lunar eclipse in Pisces in September 2024, and this is the second one, and the third one is coming in August. And the eclipse here suggests a need to create it's a completion of the chapter. So there may be again some kind of writing project that you're finishing, or a situation with a sibling that comes full circle, or a course of study that you're finishing and things like that. And maybe like even developments in your everyday life and business. Saturn here and the lunar eclipse here and North Node here, all of them want you to focus on like something more spiritual and soulful and creative. And so the lunar eclipse might suggest that there's a need to change your life and to change your beliefs, in fact, because we also have a solar eclipse in Virgo on September 21st in your 9th house of faith and beliefs. And so there is this connection here between your everyday life and your goals and your beliefs. And so both of them will need to be adjusted, right? Like I think changing your life, but starting with the belief and like starting with what is of value to you, and maybe letting go of some perfectionism and fears and self-criticism, and kind of going for more creativity, more self-expression. That is what lunar eclipse in Pisces on September 7th could be about. I also really like that it trines Jupiter in Cancer in your 7th house. So it kind of feels as an opportunity to start a business, an opportunity to partner up with someone, some kind of positive development here. Your house of career is busy all month as well. So all of these questions, right, around belief and business and maybe completing some projects, all of them are connected to what you want to be known for. And so Mars and the Sun in the 10th house can bring professional developments. Uranus goes retrograde from your 6th into your 5th houses between September 6th, 2025 and February 3rd, 2026. And Uranus retrograde suggests a lot of inner introspection and inner revolution. And so this could be about improving your health or figuring out different habits and maybe even coming up with some kind of solutions for your creative life. Like if you are a painter, let's say, discovering a new way of painting or a new way of organizing your art studio. There can also be some matters that involve the health of a child that you need to address, or some kind of streamlining of your life in order to let in more fun, pleasure, joy, and romance, or even like a health issue that you need to address to be able to date with more fun. Mars enters Scorpio, your 11th house, on September 22nd, and until November 4th, it will give you more opportunities to shine in a social context, to be more visible, to advocate for other people, to fight battles for other people, and to sort of be a warrior in a public context. Watch out around September 24th as Mars squares Pluto in your 2nd house, and there might be some fights with friends or people in your network about money, perhaps. If you are an Aquarius rising, in August, Venus conjunct Jupiter in your 6th house, bringing blessings to your professional life. We've had the Sun in Leo, Mercury retrograding in Leo, then going direct, encouraging a review in your romantic life. Maybe you've had an ex come back. Maybe you've renegotiated some agreements, renegotiated your lease. Maybe you've addressed some old fights in your romantic relationship, which hopefully brought you closer or encouraged you to let go of a relationship if it didn't serve you. The Sun in Virgo and Mars in Libra highlighted your 8th house of sharing, debts, as you maybe paid off some debts and cleared some agreements, and Mars in Libra would have been good for travel, learning, and connecting with foreign people. In September, Venus is in Leo until September 19th, your 7th house. This is beautiful for dating. This can smooth out any disagreements, conflicts, misunderstandings in relationships. This is great for negotiating, for finding clients, and addressing, any tensions in relationships, or finding new allies and building new alliances. Saturn returns to Pisces on September 1st and until February 13th. It will ask big questions about your values, about your finances and your priorities. It may suggest a need to make some tough decisions when it comes to money and set some boundaries when it comes to finances. The lunar eclipse in Pisces on September 7th emphasizes that as well. We've had an eclipse in Pisces in September 2024, and now there is a second one, and a third one comes next year. And all of that is about rethinking your priorities. And it's not just about money. It could be about money where you're sort of figuring out what's worth spending on. But I think it's also about adding something more like spiritual and joyful into your life, and figuring out something soulful that you can invest into. I like the eclipse in Pisces because it trines Jupiter, the ruler of this eclipse, actually, in Cancer in the 6th house. So it could also suggest that there is a calling that you're finding that is connected to serving other people, that is connected to animals and volunteering, and even like health and nutrition. But other than that, it could be the time you pay off a debt. Maybe you finish some kind of issue that involved a disagreement with people, conflict of values. Financial professional change is also a possibility here, like getting a job that pays better, for example. And please share how this resonates. And if you feel that for you it could be about learning something new, join my Natal Astrology Blueprint of the Soul course. It begins on September 6th and you can still sign up. Sign up today while there's still slots left. Do that at anastasia.astrology.com. So the second eclipse of the month highlights your 8th house of other people's money, of debts, of loans, of taxes, and karmic obligations. And so we're very much looking at personal goals and personal desires and personal investments and what you owe to other people. And so Virgo season with the sun in Virgo this month and the solar eclipse in Virgo on September 21st very much highlights those obligations and encourages you to examine them and figure out what kind of agreements are worth signing and what kind of agreements are more burdens that they are benefits and beneficial to you. So the solar eclipse on September 21st will also oppose Saturn in the second, and this suggests that there's some compromises that you have to make. Like maybe, you know, you get an inheritance, but you have to share it with an uncle who doesn't respect you or something. Or, I don't know, or you can pay off a debt, but there is like a clause that turns out that you have to pay like a higher percentage to the bank or something. Like there might be some kind of financial compromises that need to be made. But it's a South Node eclipse, so it definitely has that spiritual quality to it. It suggests a need to trust that you can figure things out. I can also see this as like a new beginning in a relationship where you open a joint bank account or you get engaged and you're sort of level up your connection to a different level of intimacy, something that maybe is uncomfortable and unfamiliar to you, but ultimately brings you closer. But yeah, there's feels like there's some kind of financial element involved in this. Mars is in your 9th house until September 22nd. The sun is here from September 22nd for a month, and you're also traveling, learning, writing, publishing, dealing with legal matters, maybe connecting with foreign people. Uranus goes retrograde from your 5th into your 4th houses on September 6th and until February 3rd. It will be retrograde. And so Uranus from the 5th into the 4th maybe is encouraging you to ask like what makes you happy, what brings you joy. 5th house is the house of play. Do you have enough play in your life? Maybe it's the time when you're kind of even looking back at your childhood and what you used to do as a kid, or you're maybe even looking back at your childhood as a creative inspiration, or you're looking at your romantic life in your childhood, right? Like there is some kind of interesting connection between the house of pleasure and the house of childhood. But it could be like a lot of introspection and asking questions and not necessarily immediately seeing the results. Mars enters Scorpio, your 10th house of career on September 22nd, and until November 4th will give you the energy to advocate for yourself, to be more like masculine, a go-getter, proactive, and to achieve your goals and dreams. Just watch out around September 24th as Mars squares Pluto. In your 1st house, there might be some conflict, some tensions, and difficulty that you have to be, just be careful. And if you're seeking more, register for my natal astrology course on my website, anastasia.astrology.com. You can also book a reading on there and reach out to me and ask me questions. But definitely register for the course. It's going to be amazing. For the beautiful Pisces rising, in August, Venus came together with Jupiter in your 5th house, allowing you a chance to have some fun and be playful. And maybe you started dating someone, or you've discovered a passion, you committed to something that brings you joy, like studying in astrology, as one Pisces rising I know is joining my course. And if you are thinking about it, this is your sign to join this other Pisces rising and study astrology. We've had Leo season and Mercury retrograde, then direct in Leo, your 6th house, encouraging you maybe to handle some work, health matters, maybe do some problem solving, deal with some kind of obstacles and roadblocks that were standing in your path. Even dealing with matters involving pets, I could see for you, Pisces risings. Mars was in Libra, your 8th house, giving you opportunities to make investments or spend money, renegotiate some rates, mortgage loans, debts, things like that. And the Sun entered Virgo later in the month, highlighting your house of relationships. Again, sort of encouraging you to date and partner up and put yourself out there. In September, Venus is in Leo, your 6th house, until September 19th. It suggests that you're showing love and affection in practical ways, like helping your mom do grocery shopping or filling your partner's car up with gas. It also brings a lot of joy to your work sector, or encourages you to exercise maybe and do so in a creative way somehow. But connecting with colleagues, spending more time with colleagues is quite likely as well, and like hanging out with people you work with. The big transit is Saturn returning to Pisces, your 1st house, on September 1st and until February 13th, encouraging you to take care of your health, your body, finish some personal chapters that got started in March 2023. Not to make this too personal, but my boyfriend is a Pisces rising, and he had his injury in March 2023, and he had his first surgery in 2023, and he's about to have his 2nd surgery. So speaking of finishing chapters that have been going for about 2 years, do share if there is something like that for you. But there could be some important personal realizations and transformations happening. And then there is this lunar eclipse in Pisces on September 7th, which is another important personal development. Take a look back at September eclipse last year. Take a look back at 2006, 2007, what kind of important changes were happening in your life. But the lunar eclipse trines Jupiter in Cancer in the 5th house. So it does have this supportive, lucky, emotionally mature type of energy. I feel like it suggests that you're shedding a layer of skin, you're shedding a job, you're shedding a personality, you're committing to a more spiritual version of you, you're maybe healing. But that trine to Jupiter in the 5th is like all about prioritizing joy. And so whatever changes you need to make in order to have more joy, this eclipse emphasizes. It could be deeply personal because 1st house just is of very personal nature. Do share if it resonates, if there is something that is coming to your mind. Maybe you're signing up to study astrology with me. Maybe it's about learning to speak the language of planets and to become an astrologer in the future. It's not, it's not that far-fetched. This is what I'm doing. I started by studying and now I am teaching. The 2nd eclipse highlights your 7th house of relationships. And it's an interesting one because it opposes Saturn in the 1st. It happens on September 21st, so 2 weeks after the first one. And the entire month, your house of relationships is active. So you're dating, you're negotiating, you're partnering up with people, your mind is on other people and negotiations and agreements. And so this eclipse on September 21st opposes Saturn, and it brings a change to your 7th house. So I can see this as I am being a grown-up and I am committing to this partnership, and maybe it's going to be difficult and it's going to require a lot of long hours, but I'm going to do it. Or this is not right for me, this is too taxing, too tiring, and I'm going to say goodbye to it. Apply this to whatever, romantic, business, mortgage, even a relationship with your parent if you've been having some kind of difficult relationships with them. Of course, it's a great time to talk things through. And there might be some kind of sense of like an ideal of a relationship, of a partnership shattering to potentially be replaced by something better, because Saturn has this, it kind of takes the veil off, but it doesn't have to be the image underneath doesn't have to be like dark. It could just be a sign that something serious is happening in relationships, like commitment, or you're choosing to walk away from something that is draining. Mars is in your 8th house until September 22nd. The sun is here from September 22nd. So you're paying off debts, you're dealing with insurance payments, you're maybe on the phone talking to your mortgage broker or your IRA. So there's a lot of like financial action. Also spiritual action, also learning, discovering things that you're interested in. Uranus goes retrograde on September 6th. Moving backwards from your 4th into 3rd houses until February 3rd, 2026. There is a sense that if you've been maybe thinking of moving, it may slow down. Instead of visible progress in the home and maybe rebuilding or moving, you may become a lot more introspective and sort of start to look at your childhood and your early life and the patterns that have shaped you and the patterns that involved siblings or communication or even early school life. Like this could be a very illuminating time, I think, for digging deep. It can also be the time when you're asking yourself what kind of talents you have and interests you have to make your life more fun. And Mars enters Scorpio, your 9th house, on September 22nd, and until November 4th, it will give you courage. It will give you the energy to put yourself out there, step into the kind of get out of your comfort zone, maybe travel or book trips, plan travel. Maybe sign some legal agreements if it's a marriage certificate or a divorce certificate or something else. September 24th is a bit rough, 4 days before, 4 days after, as Mars squares Pluto. Watch out for power struggles, battles, and difficulties. Mars in Scorpio is also really good for learning and studying, so join my course. You can register for my course or you can book a personal reading on my website. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being here, participating. My phone is about to die, so it's perfect that I was able to finish it. So I'll see you soon, and I hope you enjoyed it.